And here we are. Welcome, everybody, to the Friday edition of Moohead Radio. No, I'll do that again. Welcome to the
Monday
edition of Moohead Radio. I'm your host, a big and furry bovine. I've been running around packing stuff going back to Ohio this coming Sunday. So it just felt like Friday, running around like a chicken with its head cut off, and that would be
wow.
You notice he was dead while he was
running around. Well, he couldn't cluck then if he was running around.
Yeah, he was totally clucked over. So there are some things to talk about today.
Are there? Really?
Yeah, there actually are, and I wanted to start with Beesaburu. Baseball.
Been very, very good to you.
Yes.
Well, you know.
There are a lot of problems, and have been the last decade or longer, with decades from Major League Baseball. The changes in the game, some of which were chemically induced, and other things, have created a larger problem. And no, I didn't get up there for the eclipse. No. I wanted to escape the snow. You can't really blame me. And I know that it was snowing up there 2 days ago. Yeah, it was snowing 2 days ago there.
Exactly.
Yeah, don't need that. Here's the discussion going on. The Major League Baseball Players Association is claiming that the rash of season-ending pitching injuries are due to the pitch clock. I wanted to address that. Yeah.
Oh wow, I hadn't heard this. All right.
And it's always interesting. Now, this is the Players Association saying this, not Major League Baseball, of course. Major League Baseball saying hooey to that. But here's a different way of looking at it, and I would address the Major League Baseball Players Association to look at things maybe in a different light. I grew up watching baseball, earlier late in the 60s, then the 70s, the 80s. It was a very different game. And pitchers specifically, their roles have radically changed. Starting pitchers back, the 60s were the days of Don Gibson or Bob Gibson.
Bob Gibson, yeah.
And
Don Drysdale, Sandy Koufax,
Jenkins. I mean, it was a period of people there were guys who threw 300 innings in a season.
Correct.
And they didn't end up with these arm injuries. And then, the great year of 68 for Luis Tiant. And it was 68 in general. Denny McClain. Yeah. I mean, all of that. That was 31 wins. If you don't know who Denny McClain was, he was 31-7 in one season, which is pretty damn amazing. But part of that is because they just pitched more innings, and you stayed with your starter. You had a starter and you had a closer. That's what it amounted to.
Just about, yeah.
And the other people were there if the starter miserably failed. And that was, but there was no real structure to bullpen back then. The game was a much more contact-oriented game.
Yes.
And hitters were moving runners with sacrifices. There were the era of the stolen base, Lou Brock, Maury Wills. That's right. Guys who were just stealing a ton of bases. You would advance runners through non-contact means, or through sacrifice, hitting the ball to the opposite side of the infield to move a runner over from second to third, that kind of stuff. The game changed artificially with the introduction of steroids in baseball. And we can blame both the Players Association and the league itself for that happening.
Yeah.
And they got what they wanted. And, very much like somebody who starts taking meth or crack they think it's really good at first because it's bringing them up. And of course, it brought attendance up. People wanted to see the era of Bonds and
Sammy
Sosa. Yeah. I mean,
Mark
McGwire.
Jose Canseco.
Right. I mean, people in Cleveland got to see Jim Thome and got to see Albert Bell. And balls leaving the park like there was no tomorrow. Attendance was up. Major League Baseball was happy. The problem was that it was all fake.
It was all artificial. Absolutely.
And it got to the point where once all the records in baseball were being broken. But when who was the guy who played for the Orioles?
Brady Anderson. I was just going to say him, who hit 50 home runs and he was a total schmuck.
Yeah.
The guy, he was an idiot. And he couldn't play.
No.
And he still managed 50 home runs.
And you saw what happened to Sammy Sosa when he was unjuiced. I mean, he was weakly grounding out to second base. So it really did have that big an impact. So Major League Baseball made the decision that, well, we got to get this luster back because we can't go backwards. So we're going to liven the baseball. So we're going to make the ball jump off the bat.
Wow.
And so you ended up, with balls flying out of the park because the ball was more lively. Pitchers were then complaining. The Major League Baseball Association was complaining on the behalf of pitchers. What has happened since that time is that Major League Baseball has changed from a pitching perspective. Back when there were no, splitters. You can thank Bruce Sutter for that.
Mariano Rivera.
Right. I mean, the split finger became the de facto pitch. The original purveyor was a guy named Elroy Face.
Yeah.
Who was a relief pitcher who pitched for the Pirates. He jumped around the league. And he threw what was called a fork ball.
Or a screwball.
Yeah, it was a fork ball.
Yeah,
they called his a fork ball. The Cuellar was for the Orioles was the screwball, right?
Right.
And the fingers were held apart, but very like the early days of throwing the splitter. And the downward trajectory of the ball was the bottom was falling out of it, and hitters were striking out. It's all well and good when you devise new pitches. But as time went on, the pitchers who were throwing those splitters more frequently were suffering arm problems. Correct. And they had shorter careers. To add to the complication of that, velocities started increasing. Literally, consultants creating methodologies for pitchers to throw higher velocities. And we saw it. I mean, back in the day, there was Nolan Ryan. He was the guy, and he was throwing the ball up there at 96 miles an hour, 97 miles an hour, and he also had a wicked drop off the table curveball. And he was the guy who throwing no hitters. Then all of a sudden, a whole stream of pitchers, in more recent years, have been throwing even over 100 miles an hour. Chapman being the one that jumps into mind for the Yankees. And but guys throwing 100 miles an hour, upper 90s. We have Emmanuel Clase. I mean, it's not unusual now. I mean, hell, Hunter Gaddis is throwing 97 for the Guardians right now. So
I think Randy Johnson was like the first guy that was really 100 miles an hour regularly.
Right. And
anyway,
so here's what we end up with. So pitchers start getting the upper hand because Major League Baseball says, well, we can't really, junk the ball up so much. But then the pitchers developed things. Then games started being unexciting to watch because there weren't the big home runs. There weren't the big scoring games. And pitchers where, again, just like when they lowered the mound in 1968, Major League Baseball tries to balance this thing out. And the sport has undergone so many different changes. Now, with analytics, what we analyze and what front offices analyze, player contact has nothing to do with it, except for the Guardians. Nobody else gives a shit about contacting the ball. They don't care.
Apparently not, no.
Because strikeouts are higher than they've ever been. Getting all these strikeouts is not such a great feat like it was back when, because players were purposely trying to put the ball in play. Now they're purposely trying to hit it out of the ballpark. Now we have the swing being analyzed, so we have launch velocities. And, how fast does the ball come off the bat? Yada, yada, yada.
Well, the other big change, too, is the players have gotten far more athletic, and they're not all out till 5 in the morning getting sozzled like they were and still winning World Series like the infamous Yankees did in the 40s and 50s. So the players are more athletic. The players come from a lot more different countries. So you're getting players from the Dominican Republic and Korea and Japan. The athletes are better nowadays than they ever were.
Now, in the case of Shane Bieber, which is an unfortunate thing for him, especially in an important contract year, that he would go down and be out and be needing Tommy John surgery with at 28 years of age, with his future in abeyance. This is going to be, and his press conference today, he was virtually in tears, because this is just washed over him all of a sudden. And, the thing with Bieber is that when he won the Cy Young Award, he was throwing 94. Then he dropped to 90. And then he took all of this offseason working on velocity and got himself back up to 92. And so in so doing, destroyed his, UCL. And that's the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story, is that he was throwing velocity during the offseason and his arm wasn't healed from the year before. Now, and so people are saying, well, I don't understand. I mean, he struck out 20 batters in 12 innings with a bad arm. That doesn't make sense. And let me explain to you what happened with Shane Bieber and why things have to somewhat go back in time, because this will continue to happen. It has nothing to do with a pitch clock. It has everything to do with arm strain. And the most strenuous, strainful pitches to throw are not fastballs. They're split fingers and they're sliders. And it's all about rotation on the ball. You remember hearing, Trevor Bauer, not that I want to bring up that name, but talking about, revolutions on the baseball.
RPMs or whatever.
Right. That hastens the breakability, if you will, of the breaking ball. The drop is more dramatic. It gets up on the hitter at a faster speed because everything is coming faster. There are guys who, like Clase, who would throw a slider 89, 90 miles an hour, or a splitter 90 miles an hour, and they're getting up 98 on their regular fastball. The hitters are geared now in such a way that they have to be, you can't be just sitting back on a fastball, because the breaking ball will eat you alive. It's harder and harder to get things done. With Shane Bieber, what he discovered in the offseason was 2 miles an hour of additional velocity, which is not good enough. When you were throwing 94 and you're still down at 92, you obviously still have a problem. But what he discovered was a changeup. And this is not really being publicized very much. At his press conference today, what he basically said was, you know, I was falling back in love with pitching and I was having a lot of fun. A lot of that has to do, and the strikeouts were swings and misses on changeups. And if you look statistically at what he was doing, when he threw changeups, he had like this incredible 70+% swing and miss
Wow.
in the 2 games that he played in. So velocity, I don't believe is 100% of what pitchers need. I remember when Doug Jones pitched for the Indians,
Yeah.
and he was slow and slower, but he
Yeah.
could throw the ball so many different velocities. It just totally screwed hitters up.
Yeah. Bob Wickman was another guy too that
Of course,
pitched like
Wickman was
that.
spending all of his time looking at first, looking at second, looking at third, 'cause
Yeah.
the bags were juiced, whatever he was on the mound.
Yeah.
But so it's a shame what has happened to Shane Bieber and what has happened with a group of other pitchers. I mean, and it's a bunch. I mean, Atlanta's Spencer Strider, the Yankees, Loaizaga, Yuri Perez for Miami, and Trevor Gott from Oakland. These are all people whose seasons, poof, gone, and it's Tommy John surgery time.
Wow.
And DJ Brobot brings up the specter of James Karinchak, who should be an absolute warning sign to young people wanting to become pitchers, how not to throw a baseball. I mean,
Yeah.
he's arm trouble just waiting to happen.
Yeah. Then there was like Vinny Pestano and Paul Shuey and
Yep.
all those guys.
And all of these people were people who were relying on, and in Karinchak, it was fastball and a curveball, high revolution curveball and high cheese, consistently 97, 98 miles an hour, up to 99. And we haven't seen him in God knows how long, because his arm is probably just destroyed.
Yeah.
So, and that's exactly right, Rick. I mean, the idea of being able to move the ball around in the zone. I honestly believe now that umpires are guessing whether there are balls or strikes, because the ball's coming up to home plate with such radical movement and speed and velocity that, we're seeing more and more bad calls.
Yeah. I think they're just judging it on where the catcher's mitt is.
It's
When
just
they
happening.
notice
And
Yeah.
these are old guys, and their reflexes aren't good enough to know that. And the hitters are just hanging in, trying to foul balls off. And if they guess right, the ball will jump off their bat because of velocity off the bat and the swing velocity, the arc of the ball coming off the bat. And that's the whole game now. Major League Baseball has a problem on its hands, and it's not a pitch clock. And the real problems are that when you go out as a starting pitcher and you're getting all these strikeouts, and we're seeing this all over the league, more and more people striking out, but they're not putting the ball in play. What does this mean? There should be 2-hour and 15-minute games, but it's not happening that way. There are walks. There are high pitch counts. Literally, you can pitch, 6 innings and throw 100 pitches and still maybe only give up a run or two.
Yeah.
But they're just hacking away and fouling off some of the fastballs, playing protect at the plate, and pitchers are throwing more and more innings with this crazy velocity and revolution, and which all create shoulder and arm and especially elbow problems. So there was a time, Rick May, you're right, pitchers would throw to a spot. Now I don't know that it's anything except you're trying to get the hitter out of there when you get 2 strikes on them, and the hitters are just trying to foul pitches off. And the longer this thing, thank you, Amsterdam. That is the technically
Spin
correct
rate,
term, the
yeah.
spin rate. Thank you. It's just, I believe this too. I don't even know that they know that if it weren't for the sound, that the ball was hitting the catcher's mitt.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the game itself has changed, and it's not entertaining to the masses. They did the pitch clock to speed up the games, and I understand why. How many times can you throw to first base? How many times can you step off the rubber? How many times can you do this without people starting to pelt you with garbage? But it's the number of pitches they're forced to throw. People are utilizing their bullpens more and more. A successful start might be 6 innings. You go to your middle relief pitchers, and they're pitching almost every day. Consequently, they are burning their arms out.
Yeah, they get hurt.
And Class A, I can't imagine that he's going to last another year with the frequency of use that Francona was using him without his arm falling off.
Yeah.
So that's the dilemma for Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I mean, the game's sort of been solved in a way, of how it's played, a bit like chess computers solve chess. Well, baseball's been solved, and it ain't going to get any better. There's nothing they can do. What are they meant to do? Move the mound back 3 yards or something?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either, but they've tried allowing stadiums to push the fences back, to bring the fences in. I mean, they've tried everything, and the bottom line is it's just not America's game anymore.
No, I mean, like I said, the only thing you can do is push the mound back, make it so the distance between the plate and the rubber is further back, so the pitchers have longer to throw and the batter is longer to see the ball.
Right. So that's the dilemma for Major League Baseball. I have no solution for them. I just don't want the wrong thing blamed. It is the game itself that causes these injuries, and it's no different than the other sports. You can't tell me that the rash of basketball injuries isn't because the up and down nature of the game, playing recklessly fast basketball, going up to block shots, landing and twisting your ankles, it's going to fuck you up.
Yeah, on the wooden floor.
the human body can only take so much of it.
Yeah.
But the tempo, the pace, the athleticism of the game, the dynamics of the National Basketball Association have just exploded over the course of the last couple of decades. So there's that. And looking at football, we already talk about that problem, that you can try anything you want to, we're trying to make the game safer. But the bottom line is, as long as athletes are bigger, stronger, and faster, the impact is going to be no different than an automobile that's bigger and faster running into something. I mean, it's just physics.
Well, that's another sport that hit the wall. I mean, auto racing, they had to limit the speed and power of the cars because they couldn't have them going over 225 because otherwise they'd all die or there wouldn't be a race. So, that's another sport that got solved, but that was 20, 30 years ago. So
now,
it happens to all of them.
The dilemma for the Cleveland Cavaliers is a lot more easily analyzed in one respect.
Drink heavily.
Yeah. And I don't believe in kicking people when they're down, but I want to point something out. And I'm doing this hoping that people will watch this program afterwards, that some of the people who are, putting things up on Twitter who just don't know what they're talking about are just coming up with these crazy takes about things when it's not a very difficult thing to figure out. The Cleveland Cavaliers were up by 26 points and they lost the game.
Yeah,
right?
Somehow they got 80 points in the first half.
Yeah, they played their wheels off, and they were on a back-to-back, and the coach believes in not resting players, only playing the veteran players. He's just about benched Sam Merrill. He has benched CPJ. Every young player is inconsequential to him Marcus Morris gets time. Niang gets time. Even Tristan Thompson would get time. But again, it's an unfortunate thing when the coaching has so much to do with this. Isaac Okoro was quoted that we're disappointed. We needed this win. It was a disappointing loss. We all know right now what we need are wins, and we wanted this one bad. This one hurt, Darius Garland said when asked about the loss. We move on to the next one. 3 more games left in the season. Have to up our intensity and see if we can win these next 3 and look forward to the playoffs. Evan Mobley, we should have had it. Everyone feels like we should have had it. We didn't finish. That's it.
Wow.
All right. At various points during the course of the game, with Mitchell not playing in the game, it really looked like, oh my gosh, the Magic is back and we had this great first half. However, this is this year's Cavaliers we're talking about, and literally bad things waiting to happen. Over the final 24 minutes of the game, 32.5% shooting, 2 of 12 from 3, dead legs, the whole 9 yards.
Wow.
Their pace, which was so great in the first half, slowed down to a 91.0 rating. Their second half offensive rating cratered then to an 82.6. Just crazy. 7 turnovers, 5 in the fourth quarter that helped turn into 14 points for the Clippers. All right. Karis LeVert, Max Strus, and Mobley combined for 6 total points on 2 of 18 shooting in the second half. LeVert went totally scoreless. Here's what Bickerstaff had to say. The opportunity was there for us. Couldn't make any shots in the second half.
Wow. I didn't see the game, so.
Oh, you're lucky.
I did well, huh?
So it all came down, which it should never have come down to this, to a final possession that was twofold. The Cavaliers got their last shot up, running some bizarre give the ball to Karis LeVert, and he takes a 25-foot fadeaway.
Oh, God.
Yeah, like that was the way our bench drew up the play, was an option with Karis LeVert, honest to God. But with George, Paul George is a great basketball player, and he's been doing it for years. And he, in the fourth quarter, scored 24 points, more than the Cavaliers team did.
Yeah, I can believe
Why wasn't he being doubled?
I don't know.
Why was he in single coverage the whole fucking fourth quarter? And he was beating them by himself. Why? Here's what JB had to say. We tried to make it as difficult on him as we could, but it's hard to defend the free throw line. So he's making excuses about foul calls. You were up by 26 points.
Wow.
Give me a fucking break. Felt our guys did a really good job of playing position defense and staying between him and the basket. Great job. 24 points they gave up to him in the fourth quarter. He got to the free throw line quite a bit. But now I want to explain, now that the cat's out of the bag, and I let the cat out of the bag, this happens all the time on Cleveland.com and all these other parasite sites who refuse to report the truth to people. I did. And I told you that the locker room has changed. They've turned on JB Bickerstaff. Bickerstaff is going to get fired, but the team won't fire him until after the season. A huge mistake. A huge mistake that is going to cost them Donovan Mitchell. It's going to cost them the building that they've done for the last couple of years. It's going to cost them in the worst possible way. The players don't want to play for this guy anymore. And now, for the first time, I'm going to read verbatim from Cleveland.com, quote, multiple players openly questioned the defensive strategy after the game. They wondered why the Cavs didn't attempt to blitz George and force someone else to play offensive hero. Here's what Evan Mobley said. Tried to force him to take tough shots and stuff like that, but he kept making them and kept getting what he wanted. Feel like we probably should have tried to change some things and thrown something else at him. Forced them to do something else.
Oh my God. And he's like the 21-year-old saying that.
Mobley wouldn't say shit if he had a sandwich full of it. All right, next.
Correct.
Here's what Darius Garland said. Tough. He's a Hall of Famer. What could you say? He hit some tough shots. Made a tough shot over Mobley for the game. We tip our hat off to him. By the way, Mobley was the guy who was forced to go one-on-one defensively, and he stepped on George's foot and fell, and George was able to get the clean 20-foot shot off that won the game. When asked what else the Cavs could have done to slow Paul George down, the 24-year-old Garland pointed to a schematic tweak. Double him. Try to get the ball out of his hands, Garland said. He's a Hall of Famer, and he's going to make tough shots and tough baskets. That's what he does. That's what he gets paid the big bucks for. So there's two. Who you didn't hear from was Donovan Mitchell, who can't stand the head coach, and Karis LeVert, who can't stand the head coach. And now you're starting to hear it from the younger guys. There's nobody. The only one who supported him, I'll tell you now, was Jared Allen. I said I wasn't going to tell you, fuck this shit. And all you have to do is take a look at the Utah game. When the Cavaliers were called for a 3-second violation defensively.
Okay.
And spontaneously, Jared Allen started pumping his fist going, yeah. You know, that's what Bickerstaff wanted the team to do earlier in the season when they got called for 3-second violations, because it proved that they were trying to cover more ground and that their scheme works more often than it doesn't. They're not going to really call that many, 3-second defensive violations. Only this time, it was only Jared Allen doing it. And the rest of his teammates walking away from him going, we don't know you. Now, it got to the point where it was so bad that Jared Allen tried to slap and high five Evan Mobley's hands, and Mobley just backed off. Meanwhile, Garland was shaking his head and laughing at him.
Wow.
It's no joke. I don't have the kind of clout and audience to do what big time TV shows and stuff like that do. I'm not trying to get attention to myself or to this program. I'm telling you the truth. This has been the case for a number of months. And it started out, so that everybody knows, with Karis LeVert and Donovan Mitchell complaining about consecutive minutes played that were creating injuries on the team. But the injuries hadn't really swelled to the point that they eventually did. And now every one of our players is hurt in one way or another. Nobody knows what's wrong with Dean Wade. They just say knee. But there is no, like the Knights who say,
Knee.
They
want a shrubbery.
Yes. Shrubbery. Yes. That's the unfortunate part of this, is that all of this, the writing was on the wall. It was all on the wall. And it just took a fat guy like me a little bit of work to get to the bottom of it. If any one of these journalists, if you want to use that word, were interested in giving the truth to the public, it wouldn't be very difficult. But I don't have enough of an audience to affect how many people show up to watch the Cavaliers play. I mean, come on. They do. And they're bought and sold just like commodities. And now, obviously, it's okay to acknowledge that the players have turned on the head coach, because how many more disgusting losses can we have?
There's only 3 games left.
Yeah, and there's only 3 games left, and we're going to get bounced to whether it's the play-in or the playoff. It doesn't matter. We're going to play the Knicks. That's the way it was sized up now. I don't think the Cavaliers are going to win more than 1 game in the rest of the season. I think that it's just a disaster. And the disaster is 100% at the doorstep of J.B. Bickerstaff and the organization for not letting him go and allowing him to allow a cancer to spread through the locker room. That is the fault of ownership and management. They should have gotten his fat ass out. And I have nothing personally against Bickerstaff, but he's committing professional suicide. Just take a look at his face in all of these post-game pressers. His eyes, he looks like he just lost his best friend. He's lost, man. He doesn't know what to do. He just keeps repeating the same shit over and over again, and then proceeds to repeat the same coaching blunders over and over again. He's stuck in a box and he can't get out. And he's ruined the attitude of the players. He's crippled the players physically and emotionally. And now they can't win, and they won't win. They should have blown him out. That would have made a bigger statement with the current players than anything else they could have done. Ding dong, the witch is dead. And I'm not looking to scapegoat the guy. He really is to blame for what's happening. But life goes on after you fire somebody. If you're going to fire somebody, there better be just cause, and you better understand exactly how it will impact the other employees in the organization. And right now, the players would be thrilled if he was gone.
Yeah, well, there you have it. 3 games left, and 3 games in the playoffs, and then they'll all be over. They won't be playing in May this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is what it is. I only have a few other things to say. South Carolina wins the championship of women's basketball, and they were 38-0 doing it. They were the best team. Nobody can argue with the fact that they were the best team. They were the best coach team, and they were the best team. But this ridiculous argument continues about Caitlin Clark and people going back and forth about, the only reason she's getting attention is because she's white. I hear that a lot. I hear that, oh, she's the GOAT, or no, she's not the GOAT, or, nobody ever got this much publicity who was of dark-skinned women in basketball. And I look at this and I say, somebody had to be a GOAT at one time. I mean, there was a time when Bill Russell was a GOAT, or Wilt Chamberlain was a GOAT, when Michael Jordan was a GOAT, LeBron James was a GOAT, Yeah. The evolutionary process of athletics is that we move forward. I mean, Joe Louis was the GOAT, and Muhammad Ali was the GOAT. I mean, every sport you can think of, there is somebody who rises above as time goes on, and as the sports are refined, or the training methodologies, or just the sheer physicality. LeBron James is a freak of nature. I mean, and the funny thing is he's the only one who won in Cleveland the championship, and people are pissed at him because they have no reason to be pissed at LeBron James. He's the greatest player who ever played. He's better than Michael Jordan, who was better than what came before him. This is an evolutionary process. Caitlin Clark is the greatest women's basketball player today. That's all that's important. Give the woman her just due without bringing race into the equation. She didn't play on the best team. She didn't play for the best coach. She was one player, and she was playing a machine that it was 38-0. But she has taken into the women's game something that has elevated the game. The unlimited range, the quick release, the unselfish play, the assists, the drawing doubles, and passing out to open players. She is as good a basketball. She's the best women's basketball player I've ever seen. Okay? And it ain't close. Let me remind people that there are a lot of players in the history of basketball, not just gender-based basketball, who elevated the game. And I'm going to name one, Pistol Pete Maravich, who was looked upon as a hot dog back when he played.
Yeah. He had a lot of flair.
And
when people didn't have flair.
That's right. And he was forced to play for lousy organizations, and not until he was old and already crippled when he got to the Celtics. He was an influencer in changing the way the game was played. And it's really funny because the people who make the race argument about Caitlin Clark, Pistol Pete Maravich, you never heard shit about him. And then everything was Rucker Park. Well, the fact of the matter is there's a lot of things over the course of the history of a game like basketball where players created a style of play. Gus Johnson was the first one to be able to take off from the free throw line and dunk.
Yeah.
All right. Dr. J.
Dr. J, I was going to say.
The ABA, the thing that brought the ABA and the NBA together and amalgamated them, Dr. J.
Well, the best thing about the ABA was the cool red, white, and blue basketball. I mean, maybe the NBA should bring that back. But anyway.
It's, I guess, from my perspective, the game ended up the way that it should have ended up. South Carolina is a great basketball team. Caitlin Clark's a great basketball player. And the people who are arguing about this are stupid. There's no time for this. There's no time to make race an issue in every damn thing that comes up. Just accept the fact that the woman has unlimited range. She gets rid of the ball quick and accurately. And that's what that is. And Pistol Pete Maravich, as great as he was, it took maybe after his premature death for people to realize just what he meant to the game and how players, modern day players, were looking back at him and saying, he did this, and he did this, and he opened the doors to this style of play, the open court, kind of, and the fan pleasing play. But when he was playing, he was a hot dog, see, because back then they had the short shorts and it was still, Red Auerbach basketball, and it was station to station basketball. And he would have been such a better player in contemporary modern basketball because he had the skills to play that kind of game.
Well, and the thing is, the Harlem
shots.
Yeah.
The
thing is, the Harlem Globetrotters were still a thing back in those days, and they were the ones that had the flair and the crowd pleasing. But that was WWE basketball. That wasn't real basketball. So there you go.
And and I'm thrilled for Caitlin Clark because she had a national stage. The game was the most wagered on female basketball game in the history of female basketball, which will tell you that even the sick gambling disease people were watching. It had the highest ratings of any women's game in history. And Caitlin Clark's popularity had everything to do with it. Everything to do with it. Just like when Larry Bird did it, when Dr. J did it, all the way back to when Michael Jordan did it, to LeBron James doing it. So, I think that it's a great day for women's basketball. And I've always said that I couldn't get into it because it was like watching Russian Olympic basketball back in the 50s.
Yeah.
And, but the game has started picking up tempo with shot clock and now developing players. And there will be other women who see what she's accomplished, Caitlin Clark, and will mimic, embellish upon it,
Yeah.
and will become the next influential group of young women playing the sport. So that's what it is. Tony, I'm not even looking at the score of the game. He's saying that the Guardians are lifeless today.
Have they been eclipsed today?
Yeah. What's happening?
What's the over and under, Tony?
Well, I mean, the game's been on for a half an hour, and obviously Mackenzie may not have fared so
May not
well.
have survived, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking.
Yeah. Because I don't
Nothing to nothing, third inning.
Oh,
So
all right. Well,
nothing's happened.
well, could be worse. If Styx is throwing a shutout so far, that's good news because the Guardians are short of pitching these days. One of the last things I have to talk about, the NAIA has banned transgender athletes from competing in women's athletics, and in a 20-0 vote. Now, I'm not. No hitted. They're being no hitted after 3 innings. Gotcha. All right. Thank you, Tony. I know that there are sensitivities out here, and yes, I'm going to be 67 years of age next month, and I don't understand a lot of this, and I will not change my grammar, the English language, to accommodate things that linguistically will refer to a single person as they or them. I'm not going to do that. We're bringing Tony in. Hi, Tony.
Man.
Yeah. I don't have anything against somebody who makes a choice. All right. If somebody says, I think nature made a mistake and I should be a man or I should be a woman, I'm hands off. That has nothing to do with me. Now, if somebody has multiple gender reveal parties and keeps changing their identity, they're mentally ill. Okay? No, I'm just being truthful.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I understand you have a choice and a decision to make, and you make that decision. I got nothing against it. But to give somebody an advantage, somebody who has been a man their whole life, to play in women's sports is simply not fair to women who were born women.
And I saw Don Staley, the head coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks, of course the team that won it all, comes out and says that if you're a woman and you want to be a woman, you should be able to play with other women. And I'm like, yeah, you say that now until all of a sudden Zach Edey shows up in a dress and a wig and wants to play against you in the national championship game. I mean,
yeah,
come on.
I mean, this is a dicey matter.
Yeah.
The NAIA had no trouble making the decision, and that's small college, of course.
Yeah.
A student who has begun hormone therapy may participate in workouts, practices, and team activities, they're saying, but not interscholastic competition. That's what it boils down to.
And I mean, we're talking, like a small percentage of the population, but still, I mean, there was that story of that high school, and I think it was like New Hampshire or something, that, they had a trans player playing women's basketball, and she like injured half the other team, and the coach finally had to forfeit a game and say, I'm not fucking sending my girls out here. They're getting hurt.
Yeah, it's not a lifestyle issue for me. For a lot of people, they just can't handle it. For me, I don't understand completely. I don't understand how we went through so many decades in my life. And, this almost flowered in my historical perspective with, starting with Queer Eye, the straight guy, and the whole idea of gay people being accepted in society, which I'm all in favor of. It's almost like a group within a group said, ooh, I'm a man, but I want to be a woman and I want to be addressed in this way. And and everything started splitting apart and splintering. And and that's I think what Tony was talking about, Big Lurker. Broken opponent's leg and had parents fearing for the girl's safety. It's I don't know what to say except how you live doesn't affect me, and the restroom issue is dicey. I can understand why somebody would be a little bit concerned. If
Hey, the tribe are on the board. Go team.
Oh, you see?
A no hitter. Jimenez had a leadoff double, and then who's the catcher? What's his name?
Either Fry or Naylor or Hedges.
Hedges bounced out to shortstop, and then Rocchio,
yep.
Yeah, he just hit a grounder off the shin of the shortstop and then Hedges or Jimenez scored from second, so it's a 1-0 ball game right now.
Small ball.
Rocchio's a nice little player, and the double play combination of Rocchio to Jimenez is looking good early in the season. They cover a lot of ground, and I said 70 to 75 wins for the guards this year, and it's a long season, and a lot of things can happen. But some of these young guys are bringing a little bit of excitement to the game.
They could very well contend. The Central's nothing to. I mean, the Twins aren't good. The White Sox we know aren't good. The Tigers, they started out hot, and then they just almost got swept by the fucking Athletics. The A's.
The A's were terrible, man.
And then they're going to Sacramento because they can't get more than like 7 people to come to a fucking game. It's just baseball's an interesting sport this time of year.
Yeah, and at 162 games, you don't want to start out.
Damn! Another infield hit. Runners at first and third.
Oh, there you go.
And that's Quan. And again, Quan will find a lot of ways. Did he just leg it out?
And nubbed it right off the end of the bat.
You see, I mean, it's interesting. Now you've got Jose up at the plate, from what I see.
Yep.
And of course, he's a slow starter every year, and then he starts getting it together. I'm just looking at some of the stats on this, and I think that.
Holy shit, they're pulling their pitcher already.
Oh, he must have gotten hurt.
Maybe he's dead.
Oh, he looks pretty healthy.
Although they're 1-8. They're blaming him. McKenzie's given up 2 hits in 3 innings with 1 walk, 1 strikeout, and he's thrown 41 pitches in 3 innings. So he's doing all right.
Well, what's crazy, prior to this inning, the guy started and he struck out 5 of the first 6 Guardians.
It's definitely Tony DeCalf's fault. You cursed him. And
that's really a very strange decision, isn't it?
Yeah, he struck out. Yeah, had 5 strikeouts and no hits going into the first 3rd inning, and now he's just falling apart.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do you even with men on 1st and 3rd? Is that where we're at right now?
Yeah, 1st and 3rd, 1 out with
Do you walk Ramirez just so you can face Fry as the DH? I mean, it's interesting. Well, I've said everything I'm going to say, but I appreciate Tony you coming in and Bronk always.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be heading back to Ohio on Sunday. I'm going to hang in and do a Friday program, but I have questions about whether I'm going to be able to do a Monday program because I'm going to be out and about running around Northeast Ohio. Sunday is going to be a very long day, getting up at like 4:35 in the morning to get the morning flight out of here to get up there. And I'm probably not going to feel up to it on Monday, but we'll make something work. We'll be back in the Ohio studio next week, but I will be back again on Friday. Thanks again, guys. I appreciate it. And thanks everybody for joining us in this edition of Moohead Radio. Back again Friday. Until then, hasta la vista, Pastorheads. Good night.